The stars were quiet that night, but there was a tension in the void, a feeling that something terrible was about to unfold. Humanity had always respected the only law of the stars. No civilization may strike another in their home system without warning. It was a law older than any treaty, older than empires, older than the oldest human star maps. It existed because the universe had learned that chaos spreads faster than warships. Every race knew it, but not every race respected it. On Talos 7, a small human colony near the edge of the Andromeda expanse, people went about their evening routines, unaware that the universe was about to shatter around them. Children played in the dust-lit fields, laughter floating in the cool night air. Farmers checked their machinery. Couples watched the sky for signs of the twin moon's rise. Life was simple, peaceful, ordinary. And ordinary, they would soon learn, was deadly. Without warning, the Zelther Empire struck. Their ships emerged from the blackness like shadows made of steel and fire. Dozens of massive warships blotted out the stars. Talos 7's defenses, small and poorly equipped for an attack of this magnitude, tried to respond. Missiles fired, turrets spun, alarms blared, but it was too late. The Zelthar opened fire. Cities burned in seconds. Smoke rose like dark towers, and screams carried into the void, unheard by the universe, but seared into human memory forever. Captain Mara Tyler watched from orbit, her face pale in the glow of her command console. She had seen war before, but nothing like this. Nothing so sudden, so brutal. She clenched her hands, knuckles white, trying to contain the storm rising inside her. They broke the only law, she muttered to herself. Her voice was quiet, almost lost in the hum of the fleet's engines, but it carried the weight of centuries of human patience and pride. Around her, the fleet scrambled to prepare. Ships unhooked from stations, engines flared, and pilots braced for combat. Every human in the command room felt the same thing: fury, grief, and the determination to survive. Mara's eyes scanned the blinking lights of Talos 7 below. Smoke and fire painted the world in red, but she saw something more. Resilience. Humanity always survived. Humanity always fought back. Mara remembered the tales of the first Exodus, when humans had fought alien invaders with nothing but grit and determination. She remembered the words of her grandmother: "The universe respects those who endure and fears those who strike without warning." And now, humanity would make the Zelthar feel that fear. In the colonies, people tried to escape, running toward evacuation pods, but many knew it was too late. Ships erupted in fire, cities crumbled, and the ground itself shook. The Zelthar were merciless, showing no hesitation, no mercy, no honor. Their arrogance filled the void as they mocked human defenses, believing that small humans were weak, fragile, and unworthy of respect. But humans were not fragile. Humans were not weak. Mara Tyler's fleet would show them the truth. "Prepare the fleet," she ordered, her voice firm now, steady with cold determination. "We do not forgive. We do not forget. They struck without warning, and now they will pay." A young pilot, barely 18, looked up at her, fear written across his face. Mara met his gaze.
"Fear is natural," she said softly, "but courage is stronger."
"Remember what they took from us. Remember your home. Remember why we fight." The pilot straightened, gripping his controls tighter, eyes burning with a mix of terror and determination. The stars above seemed indifferent, silent witnesses to the horror below. Yet in that silence, a promise resonated through the void. Humanity had endured worse, and they always would. The Zelthar had made a choice. They had broken the only law, and every human in Mara's fleet, every survivor on Talos 7, knew the same truth. The universe would witness the reckoning, and the reckoning would be written in blood. As the fleet moved into formation, the first light of dawn touched Talos 7's burning surface. It reflected in Mara's eyes a mixture of grief and fury. The Zelthar had underestimated humanity, and they were about to learn what it truly meant to strike the human heart. The human fleet gathered near Talos 7, a jagged line of ships cutting through the cold black of space. Each vessel carried the weight of grief, rage, and determination. Captain Mara Tyler stood on the bridge of her flagship, the Resolute, watching the stars as though they themselves had ears, waiting for the Zelthar to show their arrogance again. She could feel it, the unspoken tension in the air, the electricity of a storm yet to break. Humanity was patient, but patience had a limit. The Zelthar had crossed it. Her communications officer, Lyra, tapped the console nervously. "Captain, they're still broadcasting over the comm." They're laughing. Mocking our losses. Mara's jaw tightened. Let them laugh. Every laugh carries a promise we will repay in kind. Ready the fleet. Engage only when I give the order. Every life counts. Her voice was calm, almost cold. But beneath it ran a current of fury so strong that it seemed to shake the ship's hull. Every officer and pilot felt it. A wave of shared determination that made them sharper, faster, more dangerous. The Zelthar believed humans were predictable, weak, and afraid of bloodshed. They had been wrong every time before, but this time, they would learn the full measure of human resolve. Mara had seen the reports. Dozens of colonies destroyed, countless civilians slaughtered. And yet, there were survivors. There was hope. Humanity always fought, and they always survived, even in the face of impossible odds. Young pilots adjusted their helmets and gripped their controls. Some were barely old enough to vote on Earth, yet their eyes burned with purpose. Joran, Mara's youngest lieutenant, looked over the squadron. We're going to make them pay, right, Captain? His voice wavered, but the determination behind it was unmistakable. Mara's eyes softened briefly. Yes, Joran, but we do more than just pay them back. We make them understand. We make them fear the cost of breaking the only law. Remember your training. Remember what they took from us. This isn't just war, it's justice. Even in the quiet moments before battle, Mara could feel the heartbeat of her fleet. It was more than metal and firepower, it was human will, raw and unyielding. Every engineer who had worked day and night to upgrade weapons, every pilot who had trained in simulators for years, every soldier who had watched loved ones die, they were all part of this heartbeat. And the universe had never faced a force like it. As they approached the outer perimeter of Talos 7's orbit, the first of the Zelthar scouts appeared. Sleek, deadly ships glinting in the light of distant suns, they advanced with arrogant confidence, certain that human resistance would crumble. Mara's fleet held formation, the calm before a storm. Then the first salvo hit. Human ships darted like shadows, dodging beams and missiles with uncanny precision. Counterattacks erupted from every direction, human weapons striking the Zelthar with brutal efficiency. Explosions bloomed in space like deadly flowers, each one a signal that the humans had begun their reckoning. From her command chair, Mara felt a surge of pride. Her fleet fought not just with skill, but with emotion. Every loss fueling their strength, every scream echoing through their strategy. The Zelthar may have underestimated humans before, but the lesson they were about to learn would be unforgettable. The young pilots whispered to one another in cockpits, fear and adrenaline intertwined. For Talos, for our families, for every life they took, each ship carried more than weapons. It carried memory, loss, and the burning will of an entire species. Mara's voice cut through the comms again. Hold steady. Strike with purpose. We are the reckoning. We are the fire that burns injustice. Today we show the universe that humans are not weak. Today they will remember our name. As the Zelthar fleet advanced, laughter still echoing across the void, the humans braced themselves. They were smaller but sharper, faster and hungrier than any enemy had ever imagined. Humanity had been wronged, and the storm they were about to unleash would make the galaxy tremble. The stars themselves seemed to lean closer, waiting, as if to witness the fury of a species that refused to bow, refused to break, and refused to forgive. The battle began before dawn, but space held no distinction between night and day. In the black void above Talos 7, fire erupted like distant stars dying. Captain Mara Tyler's fleet moved with deadly precision, weaving through asteroid belts and debris clouds, each ship striking and vanishing before the Zelthar could respond. Mara watched the displays intently, her face illuminated by the glow of tactical maps and flashing red alerts. Each explosion, each ship destroyed, weighed on her heart. Humans were fighters, yes, but they were not immune to grief. Talos 7's surface burned below, and the screams of its people, though distant, haunted every mind aboard the fleet. Still, there was no hesitation. There could be none. The Zelthar had broken the only law, and every lawbreaker had a price. The first salvo from the human fleet struck with terrifying precision. Missile swarms danced around the Zelthar's shields, detonating inside their vessels with explosive fury. The aliens screamed in frustration, their communication channels filled with shouts and interference. They had expected chaos, but what they received was cold, calculated vengeance. You see that? Lieutenant Joran shouted over the comm, his voice trembling with adrenaline. We're hitting them everywhere. Mara's lips curved in the slightest hint of a smile. Good, keep pressure. Remember why we fight. Every life lost on Talos 7, Evie. Every city burned, every family taken. Let them feel the weight of their actions. Her words were calm, but beneath them ran a current of fire that electrified the fleet. Every human pilot, every engineer, every soldier felt it in their bones. This was no ordinary battle. It was justice carried in steel and fire. As human ships darted through the chaos, their agility and coordination proved deadly. Smaller strike vessels zipped around Zelthar destroyers, striking weak points in shields and engines. One pilot rammed his fighter through the hull of a cruiser, detonating the core in a brilliant bloom of fire that lit the void like a dying sun. Every explosion was a message. Humanity could not be ignored, underestimated, or destroyed. The Zelthar retaliated, sending beams of energy and missiles toward the human formation. Ships shook under the impacts, alarms blared, and some small craft were lost in seconds. Yet the human fleet pressed on, twisting through attacks with unmatched coordination. Mara's voice cut through the chaos. Do not panic, focus. They expected fear. Show them fury instead. Even in the midst of battle, the humans demonstrated ingenuity. Engineers had secretly upgraded weapons for years, hidden in storage bays, waiting for the moment they would be needed. Now these innovations struck the Zelthar like lightning, bypassing shields, igniting engines, and splitting vessels in two. The aliens' confidence began to waver. They had thought humans weak and predictable, but their calculations had been wrong, deadly wrong. Above it all, Mara guided the fleet like a conductor of an orchestra of destruction. Each maneuver, each attack was precise. Her heart beat with rage and grief, yet she remained calm, knowing the difference between recklessness and strategy. Hold formation. Focus fire on their capital ship, she commanded. Break their command. Break their pride. They must know the cost of breaking the law. In the midst of the chaos, pilots whispered to themselves, clinging to memories of home. For Talos, for our families, for every life they took. Each human carried that fire into battle, transforming grief into a weapon stronger than any laser or missile. By the time the first strike ended, the Zelthar fleet was reeling. Smoke and fire trailed across the void as the humans had taken their first toll, not with mindless destruction, but with purpose, precision, and emotion. The Zelthar had underestimated humanity's heart, and now they were learning its full measure. Mara gazed at the remains of the first wave, feeling both sorrow and pride. The price was high, but humanity had shown its strength. The stars seemed to hum in approval, bearing witness to the first act of vengeance for Talos 7. And in that moment, every pilot, every soldier, every engineer knew that the reckoning had only just begun. The human fleet advanced deeper into the Andromeda expanse, the remnants of the Zelthar armada burning behind them like a trail of fallen stars. Captain Mara Tyler's eyes scanned every sensor, every blip, every shadow of space. Victory was close, but something felt wrong. The Zelthar were clever. They would not have suffered such losses without a plan. Mara's instincts, honed over decades of battle, told her one thing: a trap awaited. Her warning came moments too late. Across the void, the Zelthar fleet disappeared behind a dense asteroid field, massive rocks drifting in a silent, deadly formation. They had lured the humans into a narrow corridor, a killing ground where every maneuver would be risky and every mistake deadly. Mara's stomach tightened. All hands, brace for chaos. They've set a trap. The fleet moved cautiously, weaving between the floating giants. The Zelthar fired from hidden positions, energy beams slicing through space with terrifying precision. Ships shook under impacts, alarms screamed, and some fighters were torn apart instantly. Yet the humans pressed forward, not with fear, but with determination. Fear was a tool. It could sharpen focus. Every loss, every close call made them stronger. Young pilots gritted their teeth as they dodged missiles and rock debris. Joran, Mara's lieutenant, maneuvered through a collapsing asteroid, weaving like a dancer in zero gravity. His heart pounded, but his mind was clear. I won't let them win, he whispered. Not today. Not ever. Every human in the fleet felt the same resolve. This was not just a battle. It was the embodiment of their anger, their grief, their unbreakable spirit. Mara directed her fleet like a master strategist, her voice calm but commanding. Split into two groups. Flank left and right. Use the asteroids to hide from their sensors. Hit fast, hit hard, and vanish. Let them think we are trapped. Then strike where it hurts. Every pilot obeyed, every engineer watched for weak points, every soldier knew their role. The trap was dangerous, but humans thrived under danger. The Zelthar did not expect human ingenuity. Smaller strike craft darted around massive rocks, striking at the enemy from angles they could not defend. Missiles detonated inside alien cruisers, and energy beams tore holes through their hulls. Explosions lit the void in bursts of white and red, like deadly fireworks celebrating humanity's resolve. Amid the chaos, Mara's fleet communicated silently, understanding one another without words. A well-placed diversion here, a feint there, and suddenly the Zelthar found themselves caught in their own trap. Ships collided with asteroids as pilots dodged fire, and some Zelthar vessels were torn apart by rocks they had thought harmless. Every move the humans made turned the trap against its creators. Even in the heat of battle, emotions ran high. Pilots whispered names of those they had lost on Talos 7. Engineers murmured prayers for friends who would never return. Mara felt the weight of command, the responsibility for lives in her hands, but also the surge of pride that came with watching humans become more than soldiers. They became reckoning. Hours passed like minutes. When the last of the Zelthar ships either exploded or fled, Mara allowed herself a breath. The trap had been turned, the hunters had become the hunted. Yet even in victory she did not celebrate. Losses were heavy, scars ran deep, and the battle had only proven one thing. The Zelthar were cunning, and the galaxy was far from safe. Mara stared into the dark void beyond the asteroids. The stars seemed to flicker in response, silent witnesses to the fury and resilience of humanity. "We survived," she said softly, almost to herself. "We survived, and they will remember this day. The stars themselves will remember." Even as they repaired their ships and prepared for the next assault, the humans knew that the trap had been only one part of a larger war, and they were ready. Ready to turn the tide, ready to bring justice, ready to ensure that anyone who broke the only law of the stars would pay with blood. After days of relentless pursuit, the human fleet finally reached the Zelthar command station, a massive fortress orbiting the gas giant Helion 9. It was a towering structure of black metal and glowing energy conduits, bristling with weapons and defenses. To any other species, it would have seemed impenetrable. To Mara Tyler and her fleet, it was the final step in delivering justice. Every ship carried the fury of Talos 7, every pilot the memory of lost families, and every soldier the resolve of a species that refused to be broken. The Zelthar commander, an imposing figure named Vorthak, watched the approaching humans through reinforced viewing ports. He had anticipated a challenge, but not this. The humans moved with precision, not panic. They were relentless, fearless, and unstoppable. He spat at the thought. "Weaklings with a stubborn heart," he sneered. Yet even as he gave orders, doubt crept in, small, dangerous like poison in the blood. Mara's fleet formed a circle around the fortress, cutting off escape routes. "This ends now," she said, her voice steady, resonating across comms to every ship. Her words were not just commands, they were a promise, a warning, a declaration. She had led her fleet through fire and traps, and now the final strike would determine the fate of the Zelthar Empire's arrogance. The first wave of human fighters darted forward, weaving through the fortress's defense turrets. Explosions erupted in the void as energy beams struck ships and debris floated in deadly silence. Mara watched as smaller strike vessels targeted shield generators, while heavier cruisers concentrated fire on the fortress's hull. Every attack was deliberate, every strike calculated to inflict maximum damage with minimal loss. Inside the fortress, Mara led a strike team in boarding pods, descending onto the structure like meteors. The corridors were dark, silent, and alive with danger. Alarms blared, but the humans moved with precision, cutting through Zelthar defenses. Every step they took, every corridor they cleared, was a statement. Humanity did not surrender, did not fear, and did not forget. Lieutenant Joran moved beside Mara, his heart pounding with a mix of fear and exhilaration. "Captain, we're almost there," he whispered, clutching his plasma rifle tightly. Mara nodded, her eyes focused, her mind calm despite the storm around her. "We finish this," she said. "For Talos, for everyone they've taken, for every law they broke." When they reached the central command chamber, the Zelthar commander waited, eyes wide with disbelief. He had faced countless enemies, yet none had moved with this mixture of fury and precision. "You dare?" he hissed, his voice trembling. The pride that had carried his empire now cracked like glass. Mara stepped forward, her boots echoing against the metallic floor. Her voice was ice, carrying the weight of humanity's wrath. "You broke the only law of the stars. You struck without warning, and now you pay. Not with words, not with excuses, but with blood. You will remember the cost." The strike team moved as one, overwhelming the Zelthar defenses with swift, merciless efficiency. Every shot, every maneuver carried the anger of 100 fallen colonies. Mara's heart surged, not with hatred but with the clarity that justice was being done. The Zelthar had believed they were untouchable, but humans had shown them otherwise. As explosions tore through the command chamber and alarms screamed, Mara locked eyes with Vorthak. "This is what happens when you forget the law," she said. "The stars do not forgive. Humanity does not forgive." His screams echoed into silence as the chamber collapsed and the human strike team withdrew, victorious, but weary. Outside, the fleet watched the fortress crumble. Ships that had once bristled with power now drifted in debris, a testament to human skill, courage, and fury. Mara allowed herself a brief breath, knowing the Zelthar would never forget this day. Humanity had reached the heart of the enemy and struck with justice. Not cruelty, but the message was clear. Breaking the only law of the stars came with a price, and humanity had made them pay. The air, or what passed for air inside human ships, was thick with tension. The Zelthar command station was crumbling, but remnants of their fleet still fought with desperation. Captain Mara Tyler gritted her teeth, her hands steady on the console. Every ship in her fleet carried the anger of Talos 7, the grief of lost families, and the determination to make the Zelthar pay. This was no longer a battle, it was a reckoning. "Status report." Mara's voice cut through the bridge, sharp and commanding. Lieutenant Lyra answered quickly. "Most of the outer defenses are down, Captain. Only a few destroyers remain and they're scattered." Mara nodded. "Good, let's finish this. Target every ship that resisted. Hit fast, hit hard. Show them the price of breaking the law." Her calm tone belied the storm inside her, the fierce fury that had been building since Talos 7 fell. Humanity did not act without reason, but when pushed to the edge, they became unstoppable. The Zelthar, seeing their command station destroyed, fought with rage born of desperation. Beams of energy tore through the void, striking human ships. Explosions lit the black canvas of space, and debris floated silently like floating bones. Yet the humans were relentless. They had lost too much to falter now. Every pilot knew the stakes, not only for survival but for justice. Jorin, Mara's youngest lieutenant, zipped through enemy fire, his fighter twisting through the chaos with remarkable precision. "I see them, Captain," he shouted over the comm.
"They're trying to flee."
Mara's eyes narrowed. "Let them try. There is nowhere for them to hide. Humanity sees everything, strikes everything, and remembers everything." Across the fleet, human engineers activated hidden weapons upgrades, long kept secret, missiles that could pierce the thickest shields, energy beams tuned for precision, and electronic countermeasures that blinded the enemy. These were humanity's gifts to the Zelthar. They had thought humans were weak, predictable, and slow to adapt. They were about to learn that humans were patient, cunning, and merciless when justice demanded it. Explosions rocked the void as ships collided. Shields collapsed and the remnants of the Zelthar fleet disintegrated. Mara's fleet moved like a single organism, each ship supporting the other, each strike designed to break the enemy without wasting lives unnecessarily. Humanity fought with skill and with heart, and that combination made them deadly. Inside the crumbling corridors of the command station, Mara's strike team moved like shadows. Every Zelthar who resisted was dealt with swiftly, precisely, and without hesitation. The team pressed forward, clearing room after room until there was nowhere left for the enemy to hide. Each victory was a tribute to Talos 7, to every colony lost, to every life taken. The humans did not celebrate. This was not victory yet. It was justice, and justice required completion. Finally, the Zelthar commander Vorthak emerged, beaten, broken, and kneeling. His eyes flickered with fear and disbelief. Mara approached him, her boots echoing across the metallic floor. "Let this be your lesson," she said softly, yet every word carried weight. "The only law of the stars is not a suggestion. It is a warning. You broke it. Humanity enforced it. You will remember this, and so will the galaxy. Outside, the remnants of the Zelther fleet were no more. Human ships floated among the wreckage, battered but alive. The cost had been high. Lives lost, ships destroyed, scars left across the void, but humanity had triumphed. They had struck with measured wrath, ensuring the law of the stars endured and that the galaxy would remember who enforced it. Mara gazed at the stars, their light cold and distant, yet somehow approving. The humans had not only survived, they had made the universe respect them. They had made it clear that breaking the only law of the stars came with consequences, and humanity would deliver those consequences without hesitation. In the silence of space, one thing was certain. The Zelthar and every other civilization across the galaxy would think twice before challenging humanity again. The reckoning had been delivered and humanity's wrath had proven unstoppable. The battle was over. Silence spread across the void like a heavy blanket, broken only by the faint hum of human engines and the distant crackle of debris drifting in space. Captain Mara Tyler stood on the bridge of the Resolute, her hands resting on the rail, her eyes fixed on the stars. The Zelthar had been defeated, their command station destroyed, their pride shattered. Yet the victory felt hollow. Humanity had won, yes, but the cost had been immense. Thousands of lives were gone. Pilots, engineers, soldiers, and civilians from Talos 7. The scars on human ships were deep, both in metal and in spirit. Mara's heart ached for every loss. She had led her fleet through fire and blood, but every life lost weighed on her like a stone she could never set down. Still, the universe had witnessed the truth. Humanity would endure, would fight, and would enforce the only law of the stars. In the quiet of the bridge, Mara thought of Talos 7. The colony may have burned, but its people, and the memory of what was lost, had fueled the fire that now radiated across the fleet. Humanity had been patient for centuries, but patience had limits. They had shown the galaxy that breaking the law came with a price, and no one, not even a powerful empire like the Zelthar, could escape it. Lieutenant Joran, tired, bruised, and battered, stood beside Mara. His eyes were heavy with grief, yet they burned with pride. "Captain, we did it. They can't come back from this." Mara nodded, her voice soft but firm. "No, Joran. They'll remember what they did and what happens when humans are wronged. They'll tell their children, and their children will tell theirs. The stars themselves will remember." Even amidst victory, there was reflection. Engineers patched ships, medics tended the wounded, and pilots drifted in small, quiet moments, thinking of families lost, of homes destroyed, of friends who would never return. Humanity had exacted justice, but it had been costly. Each life lost reminded them of the stakes, of the fragile balance between survival and vengeance. Across the fleet, Mara's message was clear. The only law of the stars was not merely a rule. It was a warning, and humanity had become its enforcer. The Zelthar had learned the hard way that humans were not to be underestimated, not for their technology, not for their numbers, but for their heart, their cunning, and their unbreakable will. Mara gazed out at the stars once more, the light distant but constant. "We survived," she whispered. "We survived and we endured. That is the price of the stars, that we must bear their weight, but in doing so, we ensure their order." Her fleet began to set course back toward human space. The universe had changed. The Zelthar would think twice before striking without warning again. Other empires would reconsider their arrogance. Humanity had sent a message across the galaxy, clear as a supernova. They were not to be trifled with, not to be underestimated, and certainly not to be broken. And yet, Mara felt the burden of leadership more heavily than ever. Victory was not joy, it was responsibility. Every life lost was a reminder of what it meant to enforce justice in a galaxy filled with chaos. Humanity had enforced the only law, but the stars did not forget, and neither would the humans who had survived. As the fleet moved forward, the stars themselves seemed to shine brighter, approving in their cold, distant way. Mara looked at her crew, at the survivors of a war they had fought not just with weapons, but with heart. "Let this be a warning," she said. "The only law of the stars is real. Humanity enforces it, and we never forget." In the silence of space, the galaxy trembled, not from fear of destruction alone, but from respect. Humanity had proven its place among the stars. They had suffered, they had fought, and they had endured. And in the endless night their legacy burned brighter than any sun, unyielding, unstoppable, and unbreakable.